WrestleZone. Yeah, Robert, do you hear me on the right microphone?
You know, Kevin, I think I do, but for the
Okay.
love of God, Kev, be a professional. We're supposed to do these things before the show goes out there.
Do you hear me on the right microphone? Yeah, that's a great way to start any show. What's going on, everybody? We're back at it. It is the WrestleZone podcast coming to you live on our Facebook page. If you're with us live, go ahead and get your comments below. We see a lot of familiar faces jumping in there already. If you're with us on the podcast side of things, thank you so much. We had a really great month. A lot of people downloading the show from all around the world. Welcome to the people during the show from Japan, putting us on the top 100. The top 100 of the Apple Sports podcast charts in Japan. And we had a fun week covering the action there. I guess one time we say something really nice about New Japan Pro Wrestling, and suddenly everyone in Osaka and Tokyo knows what's going on. So thank you for checking that out.
We got that Ross Berman rub. Kevin.
Yeah, if you guys want to, if you just want an evergreen show, and just want to catch up with what's going on with New Japan Pro Wrestling, go check the most recent episode. Also, we have a ton of stuff in the podcast feed right now. Exclusive interviews with FTR, EC3, Eddie Edwards, the new Impact World Champion, before he won the title. We have some fun dad talk with him, and Trey Miguel. So if you just want some stuff to listen to some Wrestle Talk, we got that for you in the background. Of course, we'll do 4 episodes of the WrestleZone Daily, the WrestleZone podcast, straight up right here every week, Monday through Thursday. Let's get right into it. We had 2 big pay-per-views this week. We had one that I think fans really liked, and we had one that really just had fans scratching their heads in a bunch of different ways.
Not only that, Kevin, but we had the liberation of several talents who were released by WWE on Wednesday, April 15th, 2020. And they came at it in a big way. And I mean, everybody from EC3 to Heath to the Good Brothers just lighten up the internet all weekend long. Naomi might be played in a movie by Keke Palmer. Kevin, this is a weekend from like... Yeah, this was a weekend, Kev. This was a hell of a weekend.
Oh, hell is definitely a place that wrestling seemingly went to, specifically for WWE. Let's get into the top promotion in the world. They're still the top promotion in the world, but the show last night did not get greeted well. I did an immediate reaction video, and the immediate reaction I got from people, just me doing the mobile one late last night, we couldn't do a straight-up post-show, was a lot of people were upset with the show. I watched it live with our buddy Nick Hausman. You're pretty familiar with him. And there were so many things in this show that had us scratching our head. So many things. There were, this is a pay-per-view every year that they built around stipulations, special stipulations added to matches. And some were pretty morbid, like the eye for an eye match between Rey Mysterio and Seth Rollins. There was rumored thought that this match would have CGI in it. It was possibility, was this match going to be cinematic, completely filmed out of the ring? It was not. It was filmed in the ring, and it was a really valiantly fought match. They actually teased the spot a couple of times with the corner of a table with Seth Rollins, with Rey Mysterio breaking a bamboo stick and nearly trying to jab it into Rollins' eye. And they went back to the steel steps where the whole angle started over a month ago. And what looked like a little fishing bobber came out of Rey Mysterio's eye socket. And Seth Rollins threw up. A pretty valiantly fought match, but a finish that feels like a non-finish because it wasn't clear anything is done. And you just hear Samoa Joe saying, "It's out." And by it means the eye. And that's how you win the match.
I don't know what you're talking about. I saw very clearly the dollar store Halloween eye in the hand of Rey Mysterio. The eye was out, Kev. The eye was out. It was... So it's one of the most unique matches that I think you'll ever see. I don't know if any match has ever been worked around the eye. You know, a lot of eye-based offense here. I was left scratching my head because Rey Mysterio looks like a goof. A boy called out Seth Rollins is like, and I'm gonna, it's an eye for an eye, Seth, and I'm gonna take your eye out with my own fingers. And then the bad guy beats him with no help from any cronies or anything. Mm-hmm. He just takes the eye out, and I guess we're done. You know, like, what did we gain from this? Yes. What is the purpose other than Bruce, did you see that? He puked. It's fucking funny. Bruce.
Now you're putting words in billionaires' mouths.
I mean, what did
I know.
Okay, realistically, what other reaction was this supposed to get? It's like I mean, we're entering Dungeon of Doom territory here, and you called me late last night, and we talked about this.
Mhm.
We're entering Dungeon of Doom territory. Like, I don't know what we were getting here. The giant fell off a Kobo Hall. What did we get? Like,
Yeah, Dave LaGreca busted open, I believe, was tweeting, is this Halloween Havoc 1995? And it definitely felt like they were doing morbid things. And certainly Eye for an Eye is a morbid match. I don't know, but you kind of book yourself into a corner when you do that. You could have just done a first blood match, and one of them say, I'm going for your eyeball the whole time I'm in this match. Like you could have done that. You could have just done a street fight. You could have done all those things, but they kind of booked themselves into a hole here. You had great wrestlers last night. Yeah, yes, an eye hole. And so you had great wrestlers last night and great people performing. I don't think anyone says that WWE doesn't have great talent. I would say they probably have the best Raw.
getting a lot of lag after that doorbell.
Roster completely top to bottom. Robert, you still hear me?
All right. Gotta love technology. Always a fun time. Let's keep moving along here. My biggest problem with the swamp fight, Devin Tingle Texan, is that I couldn't believe that Bray taking over Braun's heavy breathing. Yeah, what did you guys think of the swamp fight? This was a ridiculous match that also happened on this card. I like this one a lot more than the other stipulation matches on the show. You got to see Sister Abigail in the ring in some way of thought. She appeared in the form of one Alexa Bliss. Move over to swamp fight here, Robert. As we deal with all of the awful technology issues we always seem to have. Swamp fight. We had Sister Abigail. We had Alexa Bliss. We had a lot of crazy things with this. Of the crazy matches, I enjoyed this one a lot more. I don't think it should have went on last, but I did like all the spooktacular elements of this one. The way it was filmed, it was pretty cool. I didn't mind it. I didn't hate it. We get to see the Fiend return at the end of the night, but it isn't clear what happened to Braun Strowman. It's like vague, there's a very vague way to end the show. Overall, I did like the match, but it did seem like with everything else on the show, less than.
So here's the problem with this rivalry as a whole. They began fighting immediately after Braun won the belt from Goldberg at WrestleMania. They had the Money in the Bank match, which was sort of just based on like, I'm gonna fight the Mr. Rogers character, and Bray wants Braun back home, for lack of a better term. Braun dispatches Bray pretty easily. Bray Wyatt goes away for a month. Obviously, behind the scenes, he had a child with JoJo. Congratulations to them. But like, Bray Wyatt comes back as the, Bayou kind of like cult leader. And we don't get word until 48 hours before the show that Braun Strowman is apparently terrified of the Fiend. He apparently does not want to ever face the Fiend. That he's scared of him. He has to end Bray Wyatt before Bray Wyatt can get to the Fiend.
Okay.
So if you didn't see that, which maybe you didn't,
when you have a baby, you can't be the Fiend. It's science.
Yeah, it is science. And it's a very weird thing that you don't get that until the very last promo, and then that's why Braun Strowman is freaking out and if he doesn't know how to swim when he gets dragged into the swamp because, oh my God, I don't want to fight you. I don't want to fight the Fiend. I'm afraid of you. I'm running away. Outside of that, the match itself, I enjoyed the Alexa Bliss thing.
Yeah.
They cannot be in the same room ever without talking about that because
they do have a certain chemistry, and I did think that was a nice way of saying that Braun's sister Abigail is this woman he has a crush on. I kind of the idea of it being something bigger. They were creative. They tried some things, but the whole problem with the show is the performances were spirited, but a lot of people saying, as Patsy Rosara saying last night's pay-per-view was horrible. It's not the wrestler's fault. It's creative. I'm seeing a lot of people saying this. Some people are saying the show was such a disappointment. I'm just going to watch AEW. This is a bad time to have a bad show.
It was really bad, campy community theater. This was really, really, I don't want to overhype this in a way, but in my opinion, I've been watching for quite a long time. This was top 5 worst things I've ever seen. This is a, benchmark bad show from WWE. You're going to look back at this and you're going to go, all of this sucked. You tried some things and you have good puzzle pieces. You got good ingredients, but they're not coming together to make anything worth a damn. I don't know how much you talked about while I was away because of whatever technical issues, but you had the weird thing with Ziggler and McIntyre where the match, which makes sense to a degree, it's Dolph Ziggler has every advantage in the book match, but at the end of the day, it just looks silly. And it's just going to go down and remembered as a match that looks silly.
You had two great guys, and they could have done something there, but they just got booked into a hole. All these guys got booked to work from a negative in some type of the stipulations didn't add anything; they took away from everything. Specifically, all the in-ring one. I thought the swamp fight was fun. I actually enjoyed it. I just thought it was vague at the end, and I didn't think that's the way they should end the show. If you were gonna have that match end that way, do something else after it. Give this something else that seems definitive.
No, I'll defend them there because they built the horror show thing, and it ended, and it built to a horror show.
Yeah,
and it felt like a thing, but it's just bad. And it's not a good time to have a bad show because there's so many surrounding circumstances like COVID, and everybody in general is feeling a little weird about wrestling right now because of the speaking out movement, and there's a lot of focus on the negatives in wrestling as a whole.
So it's a bad time. That's why I think it's a really bad time to have a bad show. Another thing is this is right before the sports leagues ramp up with these kind of out of seasons. So you could lose some viewers from this. And the word on this is not a good thing. There isn't that next day I got to go check it out on the network. I didn't watch it on Sunday element here. Which we see with a lot of other pay-per-views. Also, WWE had a pretty good streak of shows here. Backlash was well received. They had a Randy Orton Edge match that a lot of fans really enjoyed. And Money in the Bank was a pretty well received show. WrestleMania had the most social media impressions of a WrestleMania in the past few years. So to have a show like this, it's just not good. But it's just not good.
Here's the thing. WrestleMania in this condition was a novelty. It was all right, let's see what a no fans WWE pay-per-view, not only that, but what does WrestleMania look like? And then you get to the point where this is the norm now, and it's a little off-putting. And
let's hear the take from the fans. Let's hear the take from the fans here. Haley Staminol texting and say the entire show in general fell flat. Nothing special. Very predictable. Vanessa Monique, loving the lady energy here, saying it was way too predictable. Shaking my head. You think it wasn't even predictable, but it was just the way they went with stuff was sort of. I expected that, but then you had to add this other element to it that wasn't necessary. There were so many things on the show that just didn't feel necessary and didn't add anything to it.
The entire final 5 minutes of Asuka and Sasha did not feel necessary. You got a good steak, and the steak is made, and the steak is, it's medium rare, it's perfect, it's a good steak, and we're just gonna start throwing shit on it because we gotta do something with this. I don't understand what that match was. It was two women who went out there and had the best wrestling match they could possibly have, and then
they had the best match on the show. They had the best match on the show.
And then you kick in with the Gaga, and all of a sudden, I'm not sure if it's the best match on the show because Sasha tries to use the belt, gets stopped by the referee. Asuka missed the referee. The match should have ended there. But here comes Bayley to throw Sasha on top of Asuka, and I'm thinking, okay, she's going to wipe
and put on the referee shirt, use her Karen powers. She Karen'd herself into the referee position to count the 3.
And in what era of anything does this become? Oh, did Sasha just win the belt? No, she didn't win the belt. Bayley's not a ref. What are you doing?
She stole the title. She didn't win the belt.
They just ran away with it. But we have weird precedent where are there no other referees whatsoever that all of a sudden you're just it's just a bad look because it's really bad wrestling, and it's the kind of wrestling that Vince doesn't like wrestling. This was a little too wrestling for WWE. I don't get it.
Jason Goodlett did bring up one of the better matches of the night, the opening tables tag team match for the SmackDown tag team titles. The New Day falling to Cesaro and Nakamura, a devastating finish, a double table smashing power bomb off the top rope from Cesaro on Kofi Kingston. Quite the finish. New tag team champions. There is some positive there. I'll take that.
I'm down for anything that gives Cesaro and Nakamura some championship gold. I don't think this leads to anything but another New Day championship reign. This just seems like a stopgap. The match itself was fine. I don't very much care for table matches, but it was fine. The show in general was just not appealing whatsoever. Then we get the weird Apollo Crews isn't medically cleared to compete. Gee golly, I wonder why. Nothing is confirmed, but one can only imagine. MVP just declares himself U.S. champion, which by the way might explain why Apollo Crews hasn't been around to usher in this new championship.
It was weird that they brought that new belt out a few weeks ago and didn't have Apollo there to wear it, And now that segment was underwhelming. You booked a match that didn't happen on a pay-per-view, and this guy's now the champ.
And even still, they're not officially declaring him as champion, to the best of my knowledge. I believe if you go on to WWE.com, it will still say Apollo's champ. The whole thing just feels very strange to me. Yes, in fact, it does say Apollo Crews is still the U.S. champion. So even that's a non-finish. This whole thing just feels like we're going to look back on this in a few years and just say, thank God this is not that.
Dennis Friday saying, why can't Vince? Who is this Vince he speaks of? Who is this Vince character? I don't know who he's talking about. Do you?
I think I do, but I can't knock him too much. I've called him Vince quite a few times myself on this episode, so I can't knock him.
It's my pet peeve.
Yeah.
Why can't WWE just send their wrestlers home and shut down Raw and SmackDown during the break? And you can fire creative and hire new writers and let AEW and Impact take the reins. Well, here's the thing, Dennis Friday, texting that in. That's not going to happen. I do understand where you're kind of, hey, idealistically, I want to see this big giant company just stop producing content as a first run content producer with television on 3 different nights of the week and just stop doing it. Just completely stop putting out TV shows so that the other competitors can come up. And we'll talk about the other competitors. There were other big wrestling shows this weekend. We'll talk about that one here in a second. But I don't think us giving a rating, we usually give a rating 1 to 10, is even narrative. This is just an off show completely. WWE has strong performers. There will be other good WWE shows this year, but I can definitely say this is the worst one so far this year.
Hold on. I want to dive into what Dennis is saying here, because the idea of just I know what to do, just fire everybody. It's this weird overcorrection that people seem to think can just happen in 2020.
Yeah.
And like, no, it can't. As far as letting AEW and Impact taking the reins, that should tell you a lot about the show we're about to talk about. Because Impact had a strong enough show that somebody thinks they should just take the reins over from WWE. This wasn't a good show. There will be plenty better. There will be maybe some that equal the length of this show. I don't want to let them off the hook, though. I know we try to give the positive spin, but like, you got Randy and Big Show on Raw tonight. Like, that could have been something for the show. Let's not forget the show ended at like 9:30.
Yeah, this show ended 8:30 Central time.
Yeah,
for me.
like that is an early ending show. These pay-per-views are not going long. You know, you're having a lot of non-finishes. Look at this. Like, you have Christian on Raw tonight. You know, you have Randy Orton and Big Show on Raw tonight. You got Ric Flair. Like, these are some star power names that could have brought some eyes to the pay-per-view. No pun intended. Like, I don't know why they just feel the need to, oh, well, you know what you're getting. It's on the network. And I think that the network has formed this, like, lackadaisical, almost apathetic kind of content production where it's like, hey, you know what you're getting. It's only $9.99. There's no drive to create real compelling content because
and that there is, I agree with you, especially on shows like this, but then there's other shows like where Money in the Bank, you felt like there was this elevated sense of let's try to make Money in the Bank something bigger this year. Like even that Backlash match with Randy Orton and Edge, like let's try and make these two guys go an hour and make it special. And I did think there were some things they tried to create here that were attractions. Cinematic matches is an attempt to do something. I'm not saying they're not trying, but of the things they've tried recently, this just felt like the biggest swing and a miss, you know? And I saw effort in the Swamp match. I saw effort in the things they tried to do with Ray and Seth Rollins, but I didn't see it hitting. You know, as much as people want to come down on WWE creative overall and the different things, like those other shows since WrestleMania were well received. This was not. And it just didn't hit the mark. Let's talk about Impact Wrestling, okay? Impact Wrestling presented Slammiversary on Saturday night. The entire billing of the show was really built around several gauntlet matches to establish new champions. They needed a new Impact World Champion with Tessa Blanchard being stripped of the title. She was not coming north of the border of Mexico. Reported numbers, Robert. What about that reported number Tessa Blanchard wanted just to give the title back? Just to give the belt back, not even to drop it. That was like over 6 figures just to send the belt back. Ridiculous, but we can't confirm that number.
We cannot. That comes from Belt Fan Dan on Twitter, who has broken a lot of scoops as far as belts are concerned. That's really wild, but you know, Impact, they are like the Slinky of wrestling. They just, I don't know what to say. They come back from anything and everything. And it's just the promotion that will not die.
Yep.
And by the end of this show, people are like, all right, we're talking about Impact again. I'll give you a brief rundown. Open challenge for the Rascals, answered by the Motor City Machine Guns. And that's amazing, and they're gonna get a world tag title shot now on Impact on Tuesday, and I think that was a hot way to start the show. Then you move on to, like, we had Eric Young as a surprise in the main event. We had Rich Swann came back. He's going to be in a feud with Eric Young. I don't know if that was the best use for Eric Young, but it is what it is. Heath, not Slater, not Miller. He's just Heath. He's on
like the candy bar?
Like the candy bar. And he's just on Impact. He met up with Rhino. Scott D'Amore kicked him out because, you know, COVID and closed set. So you had Heath on Raw. And then you get the Good Brothers. Now, the Good Brothers, I don't know if we can talk about them in, like, briefly. Well, they were on Slammiversary and they've signed with Impact. And yeah, they did show up at the end. They beat the crap out of them.
And this was revealed late Friday night.
Oh, yeah. So that's what I'm saying. We're going to get to that. Yeah. That was some crazy stuff.
So this whole show, outside of the matches, because we know the big story coming out of it is who returned and who popped up. The thing I did like about this is Motor City Machine Gun showed back up in Impact They're a big TNA name. They have a great match. They look great. They mixed immediately well with the current team they have there. Heath Slater came out, got into it with the current character there in Rohit. So then, they always had all these guys come back and compliment somebody who's there right away. They didn't have them come in and like goon out somebody right away or do it at the expense of something. Everything added to something else. So I did like the direction they were going in here. We're going to put these guys in, not just put these guys on top of everything we're working with. And I did enjoy that. The gauntlet match at the end of the night I thought was really, really strong. It seemed like Ace Austin and Eddie Edwards in the final stage were going to win. We had a great conversation with Eddie Edwards if you want to check out that interview as well. He's the new Impact World Champion. He wins. Madman Fulton's coming out to get him. He's going to goon up and be the heavy heater for Ace Austin, only for the Good Brothers to come out and save the day. Tease a possible faction formation with Ace Austin and Madman Fulton, only to support Eddie Edwards. So that's the end of the show. Oh, no, Robert. Oh, no, that's not the end of the show. We get the post-credit scene. We get the Marvel Cinematic Universe post-credit scene swerve here. And EC3 is presented at the end of the show in a vignette that he's been filming himself, this style of kind of projections on him. We get to talk with him last week, and he said at midnight on Friday, I'm going to have a fight. He put out his own fight, like a match he had with somebody. And that was the thing he dropped on Friday night. The Good Brothers put out a podcast kind of shooting on everything that happened with them in WWE, which was, they got into some stuff there. And they also announced that they're going to have their own kind of goofy cinematic pay-per-view on August 1st. They're going to have their own cinematic pay-per-view that is going to be
how in the hell
Shopomania.
Did we not get contacted for this? Like, we could be doing commentary on this low budget talking Shopomania. We could be calling the first ever Boner Yard match between
Blue Chew the sponsor.
They must be.
Gotta be.
Chad Too Bad and Sex Ferguson donning the tights one more time.
Yeah, if you don't know who they are, these are just goofy. These are goofy characters that come up on their podcast, Talking Shop, and they're just basically variations of 80s wrestlers back in the day. Chasing the ring rats and hitting the road and taking too many pills, and they're playing these weird combinations of old wrestlers back in the day, and that's kind of what they're going for.
Social distancing battle royal, like these guys. They got Dave Penzer, who flat out said, "Geez," and I thought Sturgis was a mess. Like a lot of good.
It's just a joke of a show that they're going to present on August 1st. That's what you're getting.
I really hope it's no more than $5. These dudes, they get it, and they really got into it in that podcast where they basically buried the crap out of their WWE run. They admit that they swerved their own friends for the money. That they had told Kenny and the Bucks that they were coming to AEW, and that the end of Dynamite was built around the Good Brothers joining up with Jericho, and they just swerve completely. No, we're signing with WWE. We're taking the money, guys. They admit that they made a mistake. Mm-hmm. Luke Gallows calls Paul Heyman an effing liar more times than I can count. He just runs down Paul Heyman saying that, he promised to use us. And he said that if he doesn't use us, that I need to go on social media and bury him and call him an effing liar. Well, I'm here to tell you that Paul Heyman is an effing liar. And AJ told us personally from Vince that he got us on the chopping block. He talked about how Hunter said, do you really think AEW is going to be around? I mean, listen, guys, I know they're your friends, but we're always going to be here. Like, just the stuff, the tea that they were just spilling all over the place with Ryan Satin. Granted, none of them could figure out when AEW actually came into existence, but clearly they had talks about going to AEW, and it was quite the podcast. I mean, between this podcast, the EC3 thing,
there was a lot of things in the early stages of AEW where people were not being honest or transparent about it because they were probably under contract with somebody else when it was happening. I've kind of saw that a couple of times, but that's neither here nor there. It's well worth a listen. If you haven't checked it
Very
out,
much so.
yeah, go. It's a fun. If you want,
It's
if you
like
want the
2
dirt.
hours long, and it's
Yeah.
got Ryan Satin. And if you just like hearing people crap on WWE, like if you come here and you're like,
Yeah.
I hate Vince and I hate the company, like this is the podcast.
You hate Vince. You hate Vince, but you're still gonna get your $10 a month next month for SummerSlam.
I mean, he's gotten quite a lot of money from me. You won't hear me saying I haven't given that company my money, but it's like just a really bizarre weekend. We had stuff with Naomi. I don't know if you saw this, but like Naomi lost a match on Friday to Lacey Evans, and
people couldn't fathom the idea that someone they like in wrestling loses a match.
I'm gonna cut you
off.
Took
it personally.
I'm gonna cut you off here before you get us into that firestorm.
Why? What's the firestorm?
It became, because I'm gonna be real with you, it became like this, the black experience in wrestling. It became, I didn't think anything of it. I covered SmackDown on Fightful. I didn't think anything of it, and I'm just like, the next day, Big Swole is talking about the black experience in wrestling and how Naomi deserves more. Charlotte Flair tweeted Naomi deserves more, and then called a fan a stupid ass for suggesting that, oh, well, if you feel that way, next time they give you a championship, you should just say no, give it to Naomi. And Charlotte Flair said, oh my God, I never thought about that. While I have them on the phone, who would you like to be tag team champion and Universal champion, you stupid ass? It's just like,
I think there's this issue where people have their favorites, right? And they just want to see their favorites win. And there's this pile on, give me what I want. 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 We're not at the give me what I want stage, but we can't just say give me what I want. You have to imply all these different things so that you can force someone to give you what you want. And I get it. Naomi deserves more, but this is a thick WWE roster. We brought up how many people weren't on this pay-per-view on Sunday. How many big names were not there on that show? A lot. Right? A lot of people weren't on the show, right, Robert?
Yeah. I mean, like a lot of. So Zelina Vega was apparently at the show, according to Paige, and she wasn't used. Andrade wasn't used. Street Profits weren't used. There's a lot of stuff just not happening. There's a lot of depth, and again, I get it. I get the frustration. I get the anger.
It's natural. When you have that much depth and you have 3 shows, that's going to happen, guys. There's going to be guys on the team that don't get to play. It's not, I don't think everyone has to see like this personal and that they're doing this just to hurt her or something. Like I don't buy that. You know what I mean? I don't get it. I don't get it. You know, and it isn't to say that Naomi hasn't been on top before. She has been, and she can be. And when she is, you're not going to remember this. You know, like that's the point, right? If she wins the title before the end of the year, you're just gonna say, well, we made that happen. You know, it's that type of thing. So,
and you know what? And in all seriousness, it is a backlash that surfaced from stuff like the Daniel Bryan thing and stuff like the Roman Reigns issues. And I think that sometimes, you know, with great power comes great responsibility. And sometimes I think the idea that, well, we can just make anything happen, it gets taken to another level. Yep. Now, I'm a big Naomi fan, but I also want to just acknowledge, like, Naomi won the SmackDown Women's Championship at WrestleMania 33 in her hometown over Orlando and carried the belt until SummerSlam. Like, she had a run with the belt. It wasn't like she had the same run Undertaker had in 97. WrestleMania to SummerSlam. Like,
and they put her on Total Divas, which some people don't understand. That's a big position to be in. Not everyone gets asked to do that.
She was the one woman who was like, no, I want to wrestle on Total Divas. You know, and I get the frustration. And yeah, you can totally argue that should Naomi have the main event of WrestleMania? Sure. Should she have been in the forefront of all this? Absolutely. But I think that there was this groundswell of anger that came from her losing, and I couldn't get behind it. Like I feel you last week with the.
You don't stand in front of stands. You don't stand in front of stands, man.
I felt you last.
You don't stand. Stand accounts now, dude. I'm gonna say this: stand culture coming into wrestling. I'm not a fan of it.
I'm not a fan of it. They're calling you right now to tell you you're canceled. It's just a normal thing.
They're calling me and telling me what hashtag they're gonna use to take me down. So but touching on Slammiversary overall and going into the good things here, we're spiraling out of course here, but hey, we have technical issues.
That's the weekend.
Hell of a weekend. Slammiversary had the better show this weekend. This is a fun, well wrestled show. I do think WWE had great performances. They just had bad creative things they tried to do that didn't work. I think that's the gist of this. I don't think this is as indicative of everything going on in WWE that's happening, because there were some great. I really liked Riddle and Styles on Friday. I thought that was a great match. I thought that did favors for Matt Riddle losing. Like, he looked good in a main event. This is a guy who's like less than 2 months on the main roster, was in the main event on network television and held his own with AJ Styles and looked great and feels like a star. And he could lose a match, and that's okay. So there is some positive. We do have the things with NXT. We do have a new champion there. There isn't all negatives, right?
But
the negatives are louder. The negatives are louder right now.
But at the same time, because the negatives are louder, I think we're all going to do this thing where we act like, oh, well, Slammiversary was such a top-notch show. And, like, I'm glad Eric Young is back where he belongs in Impact Wrestling. Yeah. Did not get enough done on main roster. I'm glad.
And the Good Brothers weren't. They didn't get what they should have gotten out of their WWE run. And the thing is, that's going to happen. Like, it's not like it does seem underwhelming to performers like that have such a legacy on television. They're so established for how to frame themselves on camera and deliver a character in that way. And not everyone can do that. You know, there's a very select breed of wrestlers that can. And those guys can. I think Impact is in a very great position. I want to see what they're going to do on Tuesday night, what that show is going to be like, and chugging along. I do think there is some problems with Impact in the sense of they need people in that studio. If they're going to shoot no fans wrestling. Yeah. Now the standard has been raised of you need a crowd reaction. Like, you need crowd reactions. It's been a big boost for WWE and AEW the past few weeks. That was my one real clear negative takeaway. There were some clunky things in the women's match that Kylie Ray won. There were some, all right, you're getting a little cute with some of this stuff here, but overall, I really enjoyed it because it did fan service. The returns didn't take away from anything. It served the roster. They have a lot of forward momentum. I mean, this is a company that had the issues with Tessa Blanchard and their champion not being on TV. They had a brutal match with Tommy Dreamer. Had an amazing hardcore match with Moose and bloodied himself and made Moose look like $1 million, made Moose look like a complete monster, and got through this. So, kudos to Slammiversary. If you haven't checked out the show, go seek it out. It's worth it.
Slammiversary was a good show. It was if I was rating it out of 10, I'd give it a 6.5. Like, it was a solid show. I don't want to let this conversation go without bringing up this match. Deonna Purrazzo, who was also released by WWE on Wednesday, April 15th, tore the house down with Jordynne Grace. These two women had match of the night, maybe best women's match of the year. Like, this was some top-notch women's wrestling. I thought that Deonna is looking like a star. We spoke with her recently. That interview's up in the podcast feed. Mm-hmm. Jordynne Grace looks like a star. These women were absolutely in the position where they could have main evented, and I want to shout them out. Great stuff from them, and
just kudos to Impact. Kudos to them. They needed this momentum. They've gotten a huge influx of talent. I mean, just think of who they got in one night: Motor City Machine Guns, the Good Brothers. Okay, those are two tag teams. That'll be a fun match. What's that match gonna be like? You know, Eric Young is like a franchise player for them, and he's back in the fold. That's a great one, and made a storyline right away with Rich Swann. And you have EC3, who's definitely doing a new character. Good for them. Like, good for them to have these characters right now. But definitely, you got to do stuff that makes you feel aesthetically on par with WWE and AEW, and that's production things. You know, like they got to make that stuff feel like it's big time as much as you can in these uncertain COVID-19 times. So that is where we're at. A lot of people chiming in saying Slammiversary pay-per-view was the best of the weekend. Impact has the best women's division. That's what Herman is texting about.
I would co-sign that statement. Impact Wrestling has the best women's wrestling division. Kylie Ray versus Deonna Purrazzo is a match I cannot wait to see. Just great stuff going on from them overall.
Thank you guys for sticking with us through all the technical issues as well. If you're listening on the podcast side, thank you for that as well. You know, we're figuring this out. Don't worry. The days will come when the grandeur of WrestleZone will return, and you'll hear those thunderous chords of Andy Milne at the beginning of the show.
Let's just hope that I want to get to the grandeur of like life going back to normal. Then we can worry about the show. Like
we do have some news about the grandeur of life getting back to normal somehow. New Japan Pro Wrestling continues to have fans at their shows. They had fans at their shows this past weekend, including the Road to Songoku show. I'm probably saying that incorrectly. We have the latest results for that up at WrestleZone.com. Our very own Ross Berman covering it. They're having fans, like thousands of fans at shows with social distance and face masks and stuff like that. But mind you, Japan is in a completely different situation.
I'm not being funny when I say this. Mind you, they took over 100 days off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine that. They just stopped doing things. I was looking back at my WrestleZone catalog, and I had written an article in like April or May that Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, wanted people back at shows in July. And here we are on July 20th, and I don't see that as a realistic possibility anymore.
No, and WWE wanted to have SummerSlam in Boston somehow, where they originally booked it. Boston is in a good position, but I don't see them having that event. They're not open to anything. They are, in terms of one of the major cities in the United States, they're doing very, very well with the COVID-19 outbreak. Benjamin Jones texting in here while we're looking ahead for Monday at Raw. We will have, I will do a live stream shortly, solo one. We won't podcast that though, after Monday at Raw later tonight. He says, what is the situation with Kairi Sane? We've heard that she is on her way out of WWE, but she has been featured on television prominently. WWE being okay with the idea of people on their way out being on camera recently. They did this with Matt Hardy. They had Heath Slater isn't even with the company, and he appeared on television last week only to show up on a pay-per-view this past Saturday. Kairi saying the word is within the industry through Big Papa Dave Meltzer was that she'd be heading back to Japan at some point. What is the word on her, Robert? You've been following
Mike
this.
Johnson of PW Insider says that tonight is her last night. We know that she's booked to face Bayley on Raw, and I think we might see the end of the Pirate Princess, which is a darn shame because we didn't get the pirate ship at WrestleMania.
No, we didn't. We didn't get the pirate ship at WrestleMania.
There it goes. It's gone now.
Going east.
This darn COVID is just ruining all the fun. But yeah, I'll be honest. If I had my wish, I would say Kairi don't go. Like, I don't want to see Kairi wrap it up just yet. But I support whatever is best for her mental health and her family health. Mm-hmm. And, the wheel's going to keep on turning. Like, let's not pretend like, okay, Kairi's out, this is going to stop things. The wheel is going to keep on moving.
Mm-hmm. 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 It's just a weird situation here. If you aren't following us already on the social medias, at WrestleZone.com, I'll be tweeting out there throughout Monday Night Raw. Most of the TV shows, you can see us popping over there. Just join us during the show. If you haven't subscribed to the podcast already, go ahead and do it. We're on Spotify, so if you're streaming the music, you just slide right over. You see that big WZ red and black logo. We're on there. We're also on YouTube. All right. So we're chugging along. And of course, you can hear me on 101 WKQX every weekend with alternative rock music. Did that this weekend. We had some fun times here. And Robert, I know you're busy in the world of wrestling medias.
I am. I Fightful Friday through Sunday. I do great stuff over there. Jeremy Lambert, Carlos Toro, and Sean Ross Sapp. I almost forgot his name, legitimately. I don't know what's wrong with me. Doing great stuff over at Fightful. Fightful Select. Sean's got the scoops. Sean is just like scooping. He's working real hard, so just check them out. We're also working real hard over here on the Zone. I'm here Tuesday through Friday, giving you all the news, giving you all the scoops. Spark Out Moment's doing some stuff. I won't be joining them this week, but I hope to be back with them by next week. I'm sure they're going to have some awesome banger stuff for you guys. If you want to hear Tony Mango just complain for 50 minutes about the pay-per-view, that is up on the Spark Out Moment YouTube channel. Wrestling is in a weird place, but we're going to keep on chugging along, Kevin.
We're going to keep chugging along. Hopefully that vaccine gets here as soon as it can, right? The news is hopefully good on that.
Fingers crossed.
Oxford University and their research and the Moderna Corporation. I'm learning about corporations I've never heard about. It feels like I'm reading the storyline of a Resident Evil movie about these corporations, these pharmaceutical corporations, right? But here we are, hoping to hear the good news. And when we do, obviously, we'll hopefully be back at the wrestling matches again, and that'll be a fun time too. We'll get there. Be safe. Wash your hands. Wear your mask everywhere you go. and we'll return. Remember, when watching wrestling, what are you supposed to do, Robert?
Enjoy wrestling.